Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is Feb 23, 2022. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast, I'm Probably Wrong About Everything, for hosting us. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here today with Mark Parisi. Is that right, Mark?
That's correct. Perfect. No one has ever pronounced it that perfectly.
Where in the heck are you calling in from?
I'm calling in from Gloucester, Massachusetts, East Coast, right on the water.
Gloucester, Mass. How cool is that?
Yeah. Oh,
The
it's
first question, let's just dive right in. The first question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
what is the best thing for a human being? Wow, you dived right in with that question. The best thing for a human being, I guess, is can I get as vague as happiness? Like being um I guess would contentment be the same as happiness? Someone who's happy with themselves, I guess.
I like that. Now, see, you did it. You covered the whole waterfront in your first thing. There, you're Gloucester. You said guess. That's what I'm after more like your guess, your hunch, your intuition,
Okay.
your percept. I also like vague. That's a great word. Being vague is totally fine here. And then you asking me
Oh, my
questions
specialty.
then you win. When we invent new question, that's what this whole series is about. So, um, what's your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
My favorite form of information. You're not talking about the most reliable form of information. You're talking about my favorite form of information, and I guess that would be um, it would either be from a friend telling me something, and then I can interact with that person and tell them how fascinating whatever they're telling me is. And then, of course, I'll have to check it. I'll have to make sure what they're telling me is actually accurate. But I think sometimes just learning something accidentally, like if you're listening to a song or you're reading a cartoon or you're watching a movie, and there's some information that's part of the plot that is all of a sudden something you learn where you're not actually um, reading a news article or something. It's just kind of some. I think those are the types of things that you remember. Like
Yeah.
you learn it and it hits you for a certain reason. And like I was just watching Ozarks, and apparently starlings are an invasive species that were brought over from England by someone who was a fan of Shakespeare, and he wanted to introduce all the birds that were in Shakespeare into the United States. And now they're invasive and they're killing bluebirds' eggs and they're decimating plants. And I don't think I would remember that except I saw that on some show.
Yeah. That's good. You really that was good. And with the friend, we call that like direct experience. So it's funny. We're basically doing live TV right now. And this something that came about in the 50s. And we don't need no stinking studio or anything. And it's fun because in a way, I think this is direct experience. Even though our physical bodies are not in front of each other, it's pretty dang close. So,
Right, right. I mean, it's funny because live TV is now, it seems, or what we're doing now live seems more cutting edge, but it's actually much older.
oh
Like
yeah.
most things are now done where you edit them and you kind of get a chance to take out the mistakes. And to just do a TV show like Saturday Night Live that's live is like out of the ordinary instead of, you know, where like you said, it's kind of a throwback.
It's amazing. I mean, why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Because well, some more than others. It's I think it's important when you interact with the world. Like the more information you have, the more you know how to interact. I guess
Yeah.
you know the more you know about people or about experiences or about what's happening. It I think it helps every experience.
Yeah, and just to go back to your other point, it helps to learn how to process accidents.
Oh,
Like
what? Wait, go on with that. What does that
yeah.
mean?
Well, you mean like you were watching a TV show, let's say to be entertained or just to relax, and then all of a sudden, by accident, you learned information about the birds and the a connection with Shakespeare. And so it's processing. Well, the hidden question is this need or want to collect information more innate in humans or more invented?
Oh, I definitely think it's innate
Yeah.
because it's probably a survival thing too. Like if you know
Yeah.
that berry's poison, you need that information. Or if you know that's where what are you hunting? Mammoths or like
Yeah.
like there's certain information that is going to help you survive. You know that winter's coming, you know how to stay warm and you know to stay away from the neighbor because of, he's got a weapon and a temper, or,
Yeah.
But I think some people stop, they think they have enough. And I think they kind of, maybe stop where some people are just more curious and they want more information continually.
Yeah.
So at that point, that part I don't know. Like
Yeah.
if what was it, instinctually or
Or innate or invented.
innate or invented?
Yeah. No,
Hmm.
it's a conundrum. It's always going on with our study of all these tools. Do thoughts create emotions?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I have whole experiences and arguments and you know happiness and anger and sadness in my head that is all a thought. There's this whole play going on sometimes, and I'll feel the emotions and then I'll go, why am I going down this rabbit hole and making myself angry at a situation that hasn't even arisen? So
Yeah.
it's just thoughts.
Yeah. Mark, fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I
I don't know what I think until Oh, again, we're gonna go back to vague. I mean, I don't sometimes I know what I think immediately, so I don't know what I think until I process it, I
yeah,
suppose.
it's a good verb. That's good. Can humans think without language?
Oh, yeah. Does it need to get deeper than yes?
No. No, no, in fact, when you do short answers, that's fine. If you wanna expound on them, that's fine too. You put them into the context you want the question. So,
Okay.
Chomsky says that a language is not just words, it's culture, tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
Um, well, sometimes fight, there'll be arguments and, disagreements and misunderstandings, I guess, would be, um, the basics of that.
Yeah. Do you think humans are more feeling beings or more thinking beings?
Oh, as a general rule, I think feeling.
Yeah. These are two questions that Alan Turing asked in the 50s. Is thinking a function of the soul?
Well, what is a soul? I have to have that defined because I don't know. I'm not a religious guy, so for soul, is it being defined as like something that exists once you're gone, or just a some sort of essence that it, every person has?
Yeah, I like that word essence. His second question is, can machines think?
I don't know. I right now no, but I get worried every time I see more advancements, and of course, everyone's seen the science fiction movies where the machines
Yeah.
learn and learn and learn, but maybe thinking. is a process of, just knowing, just getting information and doing something with it, knowing what to do with it. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't think go ahead.
it follows the next question is, do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Hmm. Do I more pursue happiness or meaning? Um, uh, I think I could bounce back and forth, but I think, you know, jeez, that's a hard one. That's a hard one. I'm going to say happiness, but I don't know if that's completely true.
Yeah. No, that's good because I loved when you said at the beginning happiness, and then you said, well, contentment, and is happiness and contentment the same? And then you put in the context of contentment with oneself. And I got the question mainly from Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. He says that meaning lasts and happiness doesn't necessarily last. But most people, I ask this question, lean towards they're the same thing or they both lead to each other.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I was thinking as you were saying that, where having meaning can make you happy, can make you satisfied, can make
Yeah.
you, So you're right. There are two things that play there that kind of play off each other.
Yeah. It's just like, are we more feeling or thinking beings? Well, you can't separate them. Feeling and thinking's connected like this, but we can separate them because we invented the words meaning or feeling and thinking. You
Yeah,
know,
but I think people react to things a lot of times without thinking. I think the immediate reaction, the emotional reaction to something isn't always, I mean, there is thinking, I guess, involved in everything. But
yeah,
I guess maybe analyzing or thinking things through, or not just reacting on a gut feeling, but just
yeah,
like, I think people are naturally, like as a baby, they act with feeling.
yeah.
They're not thinking things through. And I think a lot of people don't get beyond that too much.
I like you use the word gut too, because that's really what I'm after with this interview is especially like the next question. You could say, well, I'm not a neuroscientist. And it goes like this: does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're detecting it, or are we creating it? And that's what I'm after is like just your gut feeling. What do you think? Feel gut wise, or what do you feel gut wise?
Wow, that's deep. That one's pretty deep. Um, is it how did you phrase it again?
Is does the brain more detect consciousness or create it?
Um, if I had to pick one, I guess creating.
Yeah,
I mean, it can do
we're,
both, but I
we're
think
actually creating it. Yeah.
yeah,
What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
probably speed of light. I think thought can take some time.
The poet Audre Lorde said, you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Yvonne Rainer responded to her and said, you can if you expose the tools. The basic question is what tool do you suggest? What new tool do you gravitate towards? And again, it's complicated because the word new, it doesn't have to be a new tool. And just because I open the question with some cute quotes doesn't mean you have to put them in that context. In her case, she's saying you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. And then Yvonne said, no, you can if you expose the tools. So, basically, what new tool do you suggest?
Hmm. Yeah, to me that quote or those quotes kind of suggest you can't take down a society using their rules or something like that. Like you can't, if you're going to do something, you can't do it by their tools. You have to
Yeah.
come in. But if we're going to get basic and tools, the tool that I um, use the most, and I guess I'm not going to include my phone, but Cintiq tablet there where I do a lot of my drawing is made a huge difference as far as what my work process and saving time and my
As
style.
opposed to using a paper and pencil.
Right, right. I had used paper and pencil
For
to
how
like
many
2017 or so, and my friends were all telling me to draw digitally, and I was putting it off until I had to do a book that needed a lot of cartoons, and then I started drawing digitally, and once I started, I never went back. It made
what
such a
is it called? Digital pencil? What's it called?
the brand name?
Yeah, no, the generic name.
Digital tablet or
Oh, digital tablet.
drawing tablet, maybe?
Yeah. Cool. Well, we'll get into that more. That was good. What new toy do you suggest?
Toy. Um, that I have or that I would like to have?
Either. Again, you put in the context you want. Yeah, either.
I don't have one, but I think a drone would be a fun toy. I was just watching this video on Instagram, and I was trying to figure out what it was, and it turned out it was a drone's view of a herd of sheep, and it looked like blood cells or something flowing through different air. It was just like beautiful, and just
Yeah.
that different perspective on things.
Dude, I would love a drone. There was a guy selling drones with cameras on the Venice boardwalk for $50. And I went up to him and I says, "Can I get these cheaper online?" He goes, "Yep, you can get them for 40 online." I didn't buy one, but it was like, wow, for
What?
40,
Why did he
that
tell you? Why did he tell you so quickly?
well, hey, I'm just gonna see if he's gonna be honest because people want that. Sometimes I'll pay more money for the immediacy of something than waiting for
Right,
Amazon
right.
to deliver it the next day.
Yeah,
I
or
mean,
I could drive 5 towns over, get one cheaper, or I could buy one here,
yeah.
more expensive. Yeah.
Mark, what do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
Oh God. Um, I worry about there's so many things I worry about. I guess the longevity of my career, like how at what point will it all come crashing down? Or, everything. Well, I guess, there's, relationship things or just if I try not to worry about like I think during the day I worry about um, maybe global warming or the political climate or what's going to happen to the country. But I find when I'm going to bed, it's all very personal things.
Right. Hey, that was good. Um, Marshall McLuhan learned from a poet that artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions. So, like,
Hmm.
you know, people don't know how drones have changed our lives. They've just sort of embraced them. In fact, I know a politician. I said, "What do you think of drones?" He goes, "I hate them, because they're killing people." And other. Laurie Anderson uses drones in her concerts. So, these inventions that we invent have services and disservices, but we
Right.
tend we tend to embrace them and we don't even really understand how they shape our behavior. So McLuhan learned from the poet that if you look to the artists, they will reveal the hidden psychic effects of our inventions so that we can learn to cope with what we don't like about them. But the question I ask you is what Marshall probed his whole career is why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are revealing them to us?
It's easier.
Easier. Well, that's a simple and quick answer. It's
I think
easier.
so. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think sometimes people worry about it, but they don't know what to do about it. They're just
Yeah.
waiting to see how it shakes out. They'll have
Yeah.
their concerns, and it's like, well, I could go do this and that, or I could just stay home and drink a coffee, or
Yeah. Do artists have a moral obligation?
no more than well, I think everyone does. Artists, have a moral. I think their moral obligation is to be true to themselves, really. I mean, if they're evil, then, well, I don't know, I guess it'll show.
Dude, you're anticipating our questions. You must have ESP. Are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
Um, I think old ideas, because there's some pretty terrible old ideas, and there's some pretty terrible new ideas too, but I think there's some really good new ideas. I think there are a lot of ideas that we should be heading towards that we're stuck with the old ones because everyone's used to the old ones and scared of the new ones. And so I'm more worried about kind of getting trapped in something just because we're all used to it rather than what's
Yeah,
better.
that is well put. Mark, can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
Um, I remember there was music on. I don't know how old I was, but I was just kind of rocking back and forth to it. And I remember I think it was my mother or something, called someone in, my father, and said, "Oh, look how cute that is." And I'm doing this, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is so easy. Why am I fascinating everybody with this? So I think I must have been like one or two or something, and just thinking I was impressing everybody when it was just cute when a kid does
Yeah.
that. And I thought I had invented something or something.
How cool. Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Well, blessing. It is a curse, but if you didn't have memory, then you're going to make the same mistakes over and over. So,
Yeah. Tell me somebody within your immediate family, then outside your immediate family, just briefly, who had an impact on you, sort of like a role model, and what specifically was that impact?
wow. Um, let's see. I will I'm going to I'm going to start with outside the family, and it'll be um I will say old friend of mine, Berman Supreme, who he's kind of turned into a meme. He runs for office every year, every month, and wears a boot on his head and kind of is kind of a what would I call it, like a parody candidate. And in middle school, we became friends, and he introduced me to some cool music, Frank Zappa, actually, and so certain other substances, and he just kind of opened my mind a little bit as far as just what was out there. And right now he's become something of a minor celebrity. So I will I will put him on there.
I
And,
think, just let me interrupt for a second. I think I interviewed this artist many years ago. I don't know, maybe even 3, 5 years ago, who's also a political activist who made videos with this guy, I think,
oh, right, right.
and helped promote him because he's like a cult figure, kind of
Yeah, yeah, he is.
parody of the government. That's amazing. Yeah, thank you for bringing him up. Would he be let's talk because 'cause I'd like to do an interview with him if he would do
Oh,
that.
I'm 100% sure he would. I
Oh,
could try
that's
to.
great. We'll hook up later. So then inside your immediate family.
I'm going to I think I'll mention my daughter. I mean, my daughter, she's, in her late 20s now. She just got married. Got a great, like, amazing wife, new car, new apartment, good job, and just kind of seeing how she relates to the world and how um like I'm so proud of the woman that she's become, and I look at her and I go like, "Where did you get that? Like, what? How did you turn out that way? Like, how did you become so good at this? Or how does this?" So she's very much um, a positive force in my life. When I look at her life, I think that is how a relationship is supposed to be. That is how she's got great taste and great humor, and it's just there are certain people in the world, and this is something I've learned very late in life. There's certain people in the world that you're with and then you feel drained, and there are certain people you're with and then you feel invigorated after that. And she's one of the people that I feel charged up after being with.
Wow. That was really cool. I want to interview her too. So, did your parents raise you a particular religion?
No, I mean, they kind of sent us to church, but they didn't come. So it was kind of like a obligation, I think. I mean, you could say they sort of did. We went to Sunday school, but there was never anything at home that um, was religious. So, but it wasn't until college that I decided I didn't believe any of it, and it was such a leap because there's still that indoctrination that goes on, and then you're kind of in a situation where you're like, well, what if it is true? Could it be true? But maybe parts of it are true. Maybe I know this part isn't true. I know the Noah's Ark thing isn't true. But and then at a certain point, there's just a boldness, and it's like, you know what? I don't know. I don't believe any of this, and I probably haven't believed it since I was, you know,
Right.
ninth grade or whatever.
Do you pray?
That's a good question because I still, when things get tough, I still find myself talking to someone
Yeah.
sometimes, and I don't know who it is. It's just kind of like I'm just throwing it out there. So I could say that was prayer.
If God exists, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
Welcome.
That is down to earth and simple. Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
Um, well, evil people exist. I've been watching some docuseries, and there are definitely some pretty evil people out there. And I think, I don't think there's an evil that just invades people. It is them. Like what you do is who you are.
Yeah. This question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I'm going to set up with a few modern thinkers' thoughts. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
Hmm.
Coppola stole from the mob and the samurais. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And and Fellini says, I need an enemy. So the basic question is, how do you, Mark, advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
Um, there's a lot of truth to that. Um, but I don't know what the alternative is.
Yeah.
If you've got someone who says, I don't know if this would qualify as an enemy, but you're talking about climate change, and someone says climate change doesn't exist, and now are you going to acknowledge them? Are you now giving them more power to convince other people? So,
Yeah.
I mean, for some things, there's no perfect solution or answer. So, I guess it's true.
But let's say early on your daughter came to you and somebody was bullying them or someone who could appear to be an enemy. What would you say to her? What advice would you give her how to deal with that with an enemy?
I guess it would be situational. I mean, if it was someone at work, um, I guess, of course, complain to um, What do you complain to? What is it? Uh,
You complain to the higher ups or the
personal, the right,
or you
the right.
complain to the complaint department.
Like if you've got someone who's, uh, you know, stalking you, I guess, you can't, there are certain things you can't ignore, but if you've just got someone who's just online and, block them, like,
Yeah.
I like you I wouldn't necessarily say go at them,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, I think when you're younger and you're a kid and especially male, that's kind of what you do. But as an adult, I think you have to find more creative ways.
Beautiful. So James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin about 100 years ago. He basically checked out. He said, "This is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree?" Years later, Faulkner said, "Sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?"
I don't. To me, it's not an either or. I mean, you're out there living life, and then you want something that's um, either enriching or thought provoking or surprising, and sometimes, like they say, truth is more. What is it? Truth is better than fiction sometimes, or truth is stranger than fiction,
Yeah,
which can happen, but there's something where you can experience all these emotions and then just leave it. It's fun, it's pretend, you get to, have all that interact not really interaction, I guess, but you know, and then you can just it's pretend. You can also step away from it.
yeah. So, Mark, take me through like a little through line on what was the tipping point for you to pursue cartooning as a career. And I mean, if I've met you at a cocktail party and I says, "What do you do?" What do you usually say?
Cartoonist.
Yeah, you say cartoonist. So you, at some point, you're growing up. Are you actively involved reading cartoons in the newspapers or magazines? And then where was that tipping point? You said, "I can do this and I want to do this for my career." Then did you go to college and study it or whatever? Just, brief through line on how that happened.
I had always wanted to me it just seemed natural. It was like, why doesn't everyone want to do this? This seems like the most fun thing in the world. Looking at cartoons and reading cartoons, it's like, hey, I think I can do this. And my father used to distribute magazines and newspapers, and he would always bring home. And what would happen is the ones that didn't sell, the stores would return. And the way I don't know, the way you got your money back was you rip the covers off and you send the covers back to the publishers, and then they reimburse the ones that didn't sell. And then so my dad would bring home all these coverless comic books and Mad Magazine and Peanuts collections and things like that. So I'm sure that helped having all the um, cartoon material. And as I got older, I didn't think it was a viable job. I guess it was something that. So I went to college. I didn't even know what my major was going to be. I tried. I thought biology might work or English might work, and I just took the wrong classes. And I'm like, these are not my people. So at a certain point, I took a semester off, and well, let me tell you what I did with like when I was going to take biology. I thought, okay, maybe I want to be a biologist. Maybe I'm interested in biology. So I took a class, but the only classes available to people who aren't biology majors are the ones that are left. So all the biology majors get to pick all the classes. And then if you're just taking it as an elective, you get what no one else wanted. So I took invertebrate zoology, and it was I there were people sitting next to me that would go to the Everglades and look at invertebrates. And they were talking about these things out of the context of the class, even like they had an interest. And I'm like, this is not, I must have got a D or C or somehow I passed the class, but I did not belong there. I did not know. And of course, that was the worst class I probably could have taken. And so I go, okay, maybe I'll try English. I forget this biology stuff. And so again, whatever classes are left, I get to choose from. And I was not very smart. I was not very, so I see this class called Chaucer. And I'm like, all right, I'll try that class. Of course, Chaucer is, and how dense and how confusing and how, old style English it is. And I sat in that class. Everyone around me just was a Chaucer head, like just. And so I'm sitting in the class and I'm looking at it and I'm going, I can't even, like, I just dropped the class. I'm like, I can't even fake my way through this one. So then I took a semester off. And then it just occurred to me that, well, the only thing I've ever really been interested is art. So they have an art department. So I put a portfolio together and took art. And then it was, these are my people. Now I'm in the right spot. And so after graduation, I still didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I knew I wasn't going to veer far from art. So I worked at a art supply store, and I worked at a newspaper. I worked, in the art department, worked at a printing company in the art department. And I think what finally got me to kind of pursue it in a serious way was my ex, I guess, we're not together anymore, but she saw some of the cartoons I did and she goes, well, why don't you pursue it? And I didn't have a good answer. So I'm like, I said, I always wanted to be a cartoonist. And she goes, well, I never pursue it. So I did. So I put together some cartoons and I sent them to the editor of the newspaper I used to work at. And she was really nice. And I didn't send them in. I called her up and I said, would you like to see these cartoons I'm doing? And she was just being really polite, like, okay, come in, I'll take a look at them. So I went in and brought, like, I don't know if I had like 80 or something like that. And she went through them and she really liked some of them. And she goes, called me back and was like, what do you think about $25 per cartoon? And so for me, that was like immediate, not gratification, but immediate acceptance or recognition. Like it worked immediately. I didn't have to get rejected, because I don't know how I would have handled it with too much rejection. So I was published, and they had a chain of papers, so it was weekly, but I was already in like 7, 12 paper, whatever it was, I can't remember. So that was very encouraging. I was already published, and I was just learning really. And then I submitted some cartoons to a greeting card company, and I originally have done, like, I think a lot of artists do this. They'll make greeting cards for their family, so they'll make personalized ones. So I Xeroxed all of my favorite ones, and I was sending them to a greeting card company. In the last second, I thought I should throw in some of the newspaper cartoons I do, the off the mark single panels. So I threw those in, and I heard from the greeting card company, they didn't like the cards that I made. They had no interest in the cards that I made for my family, those types of things, but they liked the single panel cartoons. So the first greeting card company I submitted to wanted to publish the cards. So I got enough positive reinforcement. That's what I'm talking about. So I got enough, like, it was a slow build, And it wasn't like there wasn't rejection along the way, because there was. But I got enough positive reinforcement along the way to keep pursuing it until like everything actually clicked in, and now that's my full-time job.
That is cool. You really summarized that well, and it evoked one joke I love to tell is the kid gets to the age where they realize that their parents go to a job and make money. They learn the concept of work. And the dad is an art teacher. And so the kid asks his dad, "What do you do for a living? You know, what's your job?" He says, "I teach people how to draw." And the kid goes, "You mean they forgot?" So a
I love
screenwriting,
that. I love that. I love, because that is so true, where kids like to
yeah,
draw and then they become an adult and they stop.
right.
No?
And so a screenwriting teacher told me a great film or great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process?
Um, I think I'm sorry if my seat keeps squeaking. I'm more of a subtle, I think. I'm not usually in the middle of the cartoon. It's not usually about me, but there are ones where there'll be a little bit of a bent of, occasionally I'll say it'll be a personal thing, and I'll say this, is an experience or something like that. But it's usually more the joke, like a standalone joke in itself, not a personal. Um, I don't know. Now that I say that, because a lot of people know I like cats because I include cats in the cartoon all the time. So that it's like that. There are certain things that you give away, even if you're not even it's not your intent. You give away a little of yourself, no matter what I think art you do. But it's not the main goal of what I'm doing.
So Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your readers, your audience, when you're making the cartoon?
Um, I do. I mean, I know there's some artists that say, no, I just do it for me. And I don't, no one's really just doing it for themselves. They want people to look at it and enjoy it too.
Yeah.
So there are definitely things that I do that I know will go over. It's like, oh, this is about coffee. I think people are this is gonna get a good reaction. Or this is a good one about cats. So I know this is gonna get a good reaction. So I do think about that. And I also think about cartoons I won't do, because which has changed. Like, as I've been doing this for 35 years, and society has changed so much that it's like, oh, I would have done that cartoon 25 years ago, but I would not do that now, because now it's just not. Now I understand
Yeah.
things better, and that's an insulting cartoon, which I didn't realize, or things like that.
Yeah. Very good. Marshall McLuhan also says that everything we invent extends some humanness. So knife and fork extends our teeth, clothing extends our skin. Like maybe consciousness is extended through religion or philosophy. It doesn't have to be tangible. What does the writing utensil extend for you? What humanness?
um what humanness? I mean, when I um because I've also written some middle grade books, for grades 8 to 12, Marty Pants books. And with those, I definitely tried to put in some humanness, because most of the off the mark cartoons I do are like one shot. There's not a lot of character development, or everything is just joke, 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 with hopefully some humanness and relatability in there. But with the Marty Pants books, I wanted to have which is, I think, typical but always satisfying to me. where the hero prevails and the bad guys get their comeuppance. Like to
Yeah.
me, I'll watch whatever it is, uh, Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, or something. If the evil guys get their comeuppance and the good guys, get rewarded, that as long as it's told in a good way, that's always satisfying. I think it's what people want in life. They want the good ideas to win, the good people to win, and the people who are out just being selfish and for their own sake, they want those people to suffer to a certain extent.
It's amazing because I always am curious why John Waters, the film director, said he rooted for the Wicked Witch of the West and Wizard of Oz. And he, he's a quirky filmmaker, but it is like, how many people did that? How many people do that? Root for the bad guy,
Yeah, I think sometimes it's just to be contrarian because the story will be more interesting. I think in real life he wouldn't be rooting for it, but in the pretend world, it can be fun to see how, evil someone can be because I've seen movies where the bad guy wins and I've still enjoyed the movie, but if that was
Yeah.
real life, I would not have been happy.
Mark, you brought up humor. What's the function of laughter?
I think it's just feeling good. I mean, there are few things that are more fun than I can think of a few, but laughing is just a release of joy.
Yeah. And then who are the roots of you developing your humor? Like music, radio, TV, family, comedians, any people that stood out in your sort of developing a sense of humor.
Right. For cartoons, I think the first one that jumped out, which a lot of people my age would say would be Charles Schultz and Peanuts.
Yeah.
And a lot of it because it was so accessible and easier to draw. There were a lot of things, and there were the specials on TV.
Yeah.
And so, Looney Tunes was I just love the timing and the humor and the characters in Looney Tunes. Mad Magazine, as I got older, was it was very cutting edge for the time.
Yeah.
Wacky Packages, I don't know if you know what those were. Those are
Yeah.
collect stickers. Those were big. And Gary Larson, when he came out, was he was kind of a tipping point for me when I saw because I wanted to be a cartoonist, but I didn't know what I was going to do. And when I saw what he was doing, it clicked in my head. It was like, okay, that sounds like that looks like something that works the way my brain works. For music, again, I'll bring up Frank Zappa again. He kind of um, he was kind of surprising. You would hear things in his songs that you didn't expect, like you'd never heard people do before, either musically or verbally. And
Well, let's stay on Frank for a second.
okay,
What Zappa album did you start with?
I started with Apostrophe.
Wow, that's a good start. And so out of the 60 he made while he was alive, were there any other standouts that you like or can return to?
Overnight Sensation and Apostrophe to me are like they're almost like a double album. Those were the two where I felt like he reached for me all the things that I liked about him. It
Yeah.
had the catchy songs, it had the funny lyrics, it had like the great guitar solos, and it was very accessible, very listenable. Um, I also was really into Shake Your Booty, which was a double album, and I played that a lot. The one, if I'm listening to one these days, it's probably Hot Rats.
Wow, dude, you really got the Zappa down. Um, if you haven't seen it, my friend Tyler Bartman, who's right there in Baltimore, he did a like an hour tutorial on Montana, the song, and you got to see it. I mean, graphically and musically, it might get a little too detailed unless you read music, but it's really informative and helps suss things out. What was, you said your first concert was Zappa? What year was it, or what? Who was in the band? What do you remember?
Oh no, I don't. I think it was 78. It was at Twin Rinks in Danvers. It was like a weird venue. It was like a skating rink, which they just kind of, I don't know, I don't know what they, if they covered it over.
He played a lot of hockey arenas, believe me. And that was like, how old are you when you're seeing him?
I must have been, it would have been late teens, would have
Yeah,
been like 16, 17, something like that. Could have been 15.
that's really refreshing. I really appreciate that. So, any other like music or film or radio that had an impact on your sense of humor?
Um, Early Saturday Night Live. That was
Yeah.
quite, when that was came out in the 70s, that was kind of jaw dropping.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I guess maybe John Lennon. I thought he had quite a kind of sarcastic
Yeah.
edge to him. It's funny because some of these people I'm talking about now, I think I probably would not necessarily like if I met them in real life, because I've seen, like, I saw a Zappa documentary, and I was like, wow, he wasn't very nice to a lot of
That's,
people.
dude, I would reconsider that. We'll do another Zoom on that. I'll tell you about how that film failed in so many ways.
Oh, yeah.
There are some ways that film succeeded, but yeah, it's like, yeah. Frank, believe me, Frank was a nice guy, and he would hug people and shake their hands. And they think because they're Hollywood people, they can make drama out of something that doesn't exist. Hey, there's music involved here. If you're going to do a guy's life in 90 minutes, will you emphasize music and not? Because
Right, right.
a few people think he didn't hug him enough. It's like, what? Okay.
Well, there were some things about, like, I know you, like, you knew him personally,
Yeah.
right? So there was some. What about the part with his kids? Because they made it out that he just shut out his children and just worked in the studio.
Again, that's, a debatable thing. I just interviewed Ruben Guevara, who put out 2 albums with Frank, with his band called Ruben and the Jets.
Mhm.
Not Cruising with Ruben and the Jets, but Ruben and the Jets. I said, how'd Frank shape your behavior? He says, I was amazed because I'm taking a business meeting with him. We're talking about how we're going to do these albums, and his kids would walk in and he would show them loving attention. He says, I was impressed how much love he gave his kids. So again, it's like, whose point of
Right.
view? I mean, when Ahmed had produced the movie you're talking about, and he said on a radio show recently, my dad hugged me. It's like, I know that I didn't have final cut on this film, and I really want you to know I'm behind the film, but my dad hugged me. So, again, everybody can complain about their parents, and it's how much you want to air your dirty laundry.
Oh
Frank was
yeah. Oh
Frank,
yeah.
he was a workaholic, and he was on the road a lot. So, you could take your job and say, I'm going to spend a lot of time with my kids no matter what, or I'm not going to be able to spend a lot of time with my kids. I mean, Gail raised the 4 kids, all the power to her. Frank helped. So I'm not going to rationale or justify anyone's failings and weaknesses, but and I'm going to just emphasize their strengths, but everybody has failings and strengths.
Oh,
So,
100%.
yeah.
100%. And I do kind of understand what you're talking about, because a lot of people will get on John Lennon because of Julian, and he didn't really pay him a lot of attention. But to his benefit, like, he acknowledged it. He's like, yeah, I was a terrible husband. I was not a good dad to him. And it felt like he was trying to atone.
Yeah. It's like the history. I've got a whole lecture on this subject, that the parent's a great creative person, but they suck as parents. Or the artist is, and they suck as parents. So who's telling you that story? The person is telling you that story is probably the kid. You know, Louis Kahn's son realized his dad, who's a great architect, had
Right.
3 families. And
Oh my
he
God.
only knew there was only one. And he said, well, he didn't do great as a dad, but he did great as an architect. It's called my favorite architect. And again, he did it with compassion. You know, the Ramblin' Jack Elliott documentary is interesting too, because his daughter basically says, "Hey, failed as a parent, but he's a great folk singer." So again, this is
Yeah.
like when your life is in public eye, you're getting examined more. I mean, you know, your daughter could say, "Hey, my dad has his strengths, his weaknesses. Here they are." But you know, she's not publishing them in comic books, is she? Maybe our Crumb's daughter does that.
Right. And I think there's a lot of that in, excuse me, in especially music, because you're kind of thrown into adulation, and we're like you're thrown into something that, usually at a young age too,
Yeah,
that where it's a little bit kind of like you don't even know how you would react had you been thrown into that situation. And sometimes time comes along, and that person cannot process all that is happening to them at that time.
yeah.
So
Well, in fact, Mark, this is a good way to insert this question.
okay.
Moshe Feldenkrais says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength, rather than we're taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness that you turned into a strength.
Oh, huh. That's a really good question. I hope I have an example. Um, Boy, you could have emailed me this one first. I thought about it.
And don't worry if you can say pass and get back to me. It's not a big deal, but
I will. I guess I'll say I was really shy as a kid.
okay.
Like, like I don't want to use the word painfully shy, but shy in that could kind of hinder your life. So I think maybe I think that's maybe why drawing was so um, interesting or good for me, because it's kind of one of those things where if you want to do something funny, you don't have to do it and no one laughs and you're rejected. You can look at the drawing, and if the drawing's funny or isn't funny, it's the drawing's fault. It's not, you know what I mean? You're
Yeah.
laughing or not laughing at the drawing, not at the person. So I think that helped probably bring me out of my shell. So
Yeah.
I
That
think that
that was a good example. And also saying you've done this for 35 years. Tell me one major element that has stayed the same in your 35 years and one major element that's changed.
in the cartoon.
Yeah, in your creativeness in cartooning. One major element that stayed the same, just being a creative cartoonist, and one major element that's changed.
Well, one again, I'll take it the opposite way. One that has changed is my drawing style. I look back at some of my drawings and I'm like, oh my God, what was I thinking? Uh, when I first started, there was kind of a naiveness to it, which can be kind of charming, I suppose. But once I kind of learned how to draw, I just filled the panel with bookshelves and tables and like things that did not have to even be there. So now I've simplified and simplified, and especially now that I'm using the Cintiq, the tablet, that has led me to simplify even more. And so I think that has changed a lot. Like the way I'm not even sure you look at some of the draw, like some artists you look at and it changes, but there's still a thread going
Yeah,
through it. So I'm not sure you would know necessarily that they were by the same person, but you might,
yeah,
if you looked at one from this decade or, against this one.
In
Um,
fact, that's funny you said that because that thread word is the best way to describe Zappa is he called it conceptual continuity. He said there's a thread running through all 60 of my albums, and if you want to catch it and follow it, fine. If you don't, no worries. But and it's like in film, it's called the auteur theory. Oh, I can tell that's a Hitchcock film without
right,
even seeing.
right.
But that's the job of the artist is to constantly reinvent yourself, have fun, and if you want to have this recognizable style, fine, and if you don't, that's fine too. You're
Well, I
free.
love it. Sometimes people will go by the aisle of greeting cards in a store and be like, and tell me that they could tell that was mine right away before they
There you
looked at
go.
the name. So
Yeah.
I
now
was enjoying
now
that.
in 35 years, what's one thing that stayed the same?
Um, I suppose it's just trying to milk an idea to get to the essence of it, to the funniest part
Yeah.
that I can, because um, there are times where I know there's a joke in there and I'm not telling it the right way. It's like I know, like, it'll be all right. I'll draw it and I'll go, no, that's not. Why isn't that funny? And so I'll have to kind of go back and revisit it and figure out the element that it needs to be funny, because there can be two cartoons that are actually very similar, but one's funny and one isn't. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's just a word that has to either change or come out.
That's great. They asked James Joyce when he was writing Finnegan's Wake, they go, how's it coming? He's going, well, I've got these 12 words I've been working on all week. He goes, well, what's taking you so long? He goes, I'm trying to put them in the right order. but another writer who explored satire, Jonathan Swift, he compared it to a mirror in which people could see every face but their own. I mean, what's the function of satire? Like I'll just set it up too with Gurdjieff. He said that the Sufi guy, Gurdjieff, said that laughter is the reconciliation of yes and no. Like, how do you find satire functioning in your pursuit to be a humorous guy? I mean, you got to like do this every day, sit down and illustrate a joke. I mean, that's basically, but you have to come up with the joke. They're not feeding you the jokes, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, what do you think of that? Satire is a mirror in which people could see every face but their own, or just this idea of
Huh.
how does satire function in your process?
One thing that I've noticed, um, I'm just going to include satire with humor in
Yeah.
general, is that I do more positive cartoons than I used to. I used to think humor had to have a fall guy. Like there had to be someone who was suffering, someone who was the brunt of a joke. And that's not always the case. I think I try to stay up on what's happening in humor. So I follow a lot of web cartoons and other cartoonists, newspaper cartoons, and see what everyone's up to. And I have seen the a trend of, and I don't know if it has to do with um, you know the virus and everything, and everyone's trying to work their um, fears out and try to just be more positive because things are kind of shitty. But it's fun. I found it's very fun. It gets a good reaction if you can make something funny but also have a positive spin on it.
Yeah.
So I kind of enjoy doing that, and that kind of makes it, you know, it's a good feeling when I pull one of those off.
Well, what's the roots of that? Did your parents raise you to be a positive guy? Did you get that on your own? What would you say the roots of your positiveness is?
I'm not saying I'm a positive guy. I mean, I have a lot of I can be very sarcastic, you know, I have a but I don't try to do it in a mean way, you know.
I see.
You know,
Yeah.
I think there's cynicism and then there's being kind of pointing out the flaw in a humorous way or something like that. Like you're not holding anyone's feet to the fire for something. You're just kind of saying, "Oh, isn't this, you know, this is funny, isn't it? Don't you see the humor here?" But
Yeah.
I think that it's just you know, it's just nice to get positive to put out positive energy. Not that I do that all the time, but I think even putting a cartoon out there that has a fall guy or has a thing that is funny, you know, makes people laugh, and it's feels good to know that like you're bringing out that energy in someone.
You know, I think, Mark, what you just described is a lot how Zappa is misunderstood because they go, he's a complainer and a whiner and a cynic. And I had someone say, he's a cynic, you know, and I goes, well, he's more a satirist. And, you know, if you watch him on Dinah Shore, watch it on YouTube. That he was on Dinah Shore. It is hilarious because at one point, one of the panel people on his panel with him go, I'll get into that with you after the show. And he goes, well, I don't want to do that because I'm just here to have a good time. And everybody just loves because he flipped the whole thing because it sounded like he was a complainer. And he was like, he really said that often. I'm just here to have a good time. I'm just an entertainer.
Right,
There's a
right.
lot, he's deeper than that. But I'm curious this meanness thing because I knew Matt Groening. I know Mike Groening a little, and you know, you got the Simpsons, South Park, Beavis and Butthead, and Ren and Stimpy. They all, in my opinion, taught kids how to be mean assholes. But you know, maybe I missed it. I just didn't engage in that so much. But out of those four, is your tendency that sort of meanness, or is that not?
No, I don't want you to misunderstand that all my cartoons are
Yeah,
flowers and happy and positive. I I 100% will have, you know, people being, um, I don't know, I don't wanna say murdered, but I'll have, like, people in bad situations in
right.
in a funny way. So,
Yeah,
I have no like, The Simpsons to me, especially in its heyday, really funny. Like
yeah.
you've got Bart being choked and everything, but it's not like I'm going to condone a dad choking his kid. These are fake cartoon people. And you can do things in cartoons that you would never do in real life. And like Looney,
Because we grew up with Looney Tunes, man, and I
yeah,
mean that shit is like Tex Avery, and we grew up with the Three Stooges, right? Did you grow up with the Three Stooges?
right, yeah,
Well, we didn't poke our family members' eyes out, so I know what you're saying.
right, right. You
Yeah,
separate what's humor and you know what is acceptable
yeah,
in real life. Right, I never wanted to hit a friend with a 2x4 because I saw it on the Three Stooges, or blow up, get some TNT and blow up, you know, a bird or anything, you know? So I there, you know, all kinds of humor
yeah,
can can work as long as it's I mean, there is some kind of humor that I think is mean-spirited
yeah,
deliberately, and to me, it's not funny. Some people might find it funny,
yeah.
but for things that are, you know, you can do explosions and you can have, you know, a lot of things I like are dark humor, so, you
Yeah.
know, you can pull that off. Sure.
And it's in the long run, it's how we process it. In fact, it leads into this question. There's a line that goes, "You create what you resist." And Bob Goldthwait, the comedian, morphed it into "You are what you hate." Isn't that great? James Joyce said, it's a curious thing how your brain is super saturated in the religion you say you disbelieve. And Louis Buñuel nailed it. He said, thank God I'm an atheist. So, what's your take on this? Not you, Mark, you create what you resist. But this idea to apply to artists or writers or whatever, one creates what one resists.
Hmm. I think that's partially true. I don't think that's necessarily true in art where you're like, I think a lot of times it's artists, well, again, it goes either way. I mean, you can look at the graphic novel Mouse, and it's about Nazis, which is certainly, you know, what everyone hates. So it's, but it's also about family, and it's also about like it's very
Right.
layered. So I mean, um, I think of that as more not so much an art. Like I know art can be, especially editorial cartoons or political cartoons, are about what you hate. It's usually not about how good something is going. It's about how terrible this thing is, how terrible this person is, how terrible this way of thinking is. So in that way, I can see, the art you're putting out is about what you hate. Most songs are about love, so that's about what you love. But I think people, a lot of personalities, I think especially lately, are based on what you're against.
That's funny you brought that up because I remember when Frank was campaigning against the PMRC labeling records, saying this album has dirty lyrics. And it's like, okay, if kids are really listening to the lyrics of songs, this is what Frank said on a radio show once. And most songs are about love, then why isn't everybody loving each other if they're listening to the words? And this woman called up it was a live call in, and she goes, Frank, that's because most of the love you hear in songs is puppy love. And he goes, that's a good point. And it really gave me that big picture view how Frank was willing to embrace contradiction, that if he heard another point of view, he might shift a little, you know, and he goes, I do write a few love songs, but he had this thing about love songs. And so it is interesting because what you resist persists, it's
Right.
like, does Neil Young work for Joe Rogan's publicity department or what? But, I mean, anyways, onward and upward. Anger can be a productive emotion when fill in the blank.
Oh, well, that reminds me of Public Image Limited. What anger is an energy.
Yes.
Uh, and
I
I think
love that.
the Clash had one too. Anger, you can use it. I can't remember. I can't remember. But wait, what was the question?
Fill in
Anger,
the fill in the blank. Anger can be a productive emotion when
it, I guess, provokes you into action to right or wrong.
yeah. What's more important, conviction or compromise?
Um, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I would say conviction, but I think you can have conviction and still know when to compromise.
Yeah. You've accomplished a lot. Rate these three elements: luck, skill, and ambition. What played the biggest role, second and third?
Luck, skill, and ambition in life, and just in general.
Yeah, again, you put it in the context you want, in life in general, or your career, or however you want to put it.
God, I'm not sure that I even know how to rank those two, because a lot of them don't work unless they're all there. So if you've got skill but no luck, you're probably not going anywhere. If you have luck but no skill, you might go only so far. Ambition, um, it's funny. It's funny how important ambition is because I see people succeed where I'm like, wow, you're just so confident that you've defied all the odds because you just bring people along.
Yeah.
So I All right, we'll go back to Frank Zappa. I'll turn this around. Which do you think he had more of?
That is a great flip around because one of my best Zappa friends said, I'm not going to settle for those three choices, Jerry. I'm going to add necessity. And I like to psychoanalyze all these questions with the people I'm asking them. And that was good. You said, hey, you can't, because there was a golfer, Gary Player says, the more you practice, the luckier you get.
Yeah, I've heard that where like
That's like skill. But,
you
but
have to
I
be, you have to be ready for that luck. Like you,
yeah.
you prepare yourself for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say Frank really excelled at skill and ambition, but he was an ambitious guy. He wanted to go learn, teach himself how to write music, go out and peddle it, go to Hollywood and sell his songs to Art LeBeau, get this thing going. And oh, the fan broke his leg. He's writing two of his best albums after that, Waka Jawaka and Grand Wazoo. I mean, he was a go-getter.
I
Of
love
course,
luck.
yeah. And of course, luck is really important. Luck sounds too like metaphysical, but I think
It's
it's
timing. I think it's kind of your because there
timing,
are people who just have all the tools, but their timing wasn't right. They could have been too early, too late,
timing.
and so I think
But
luck and timing are kind of tied together, I think.
but listen to this, Mark. The question used to be, is ambition based more on fear or joy? Meaning
Huh.
in your observations of other humans,
Right,
not
right.
yours.
I would say fear.
Yeah, that's what everybody said. And then I decided to change the question because William Friedkin, the director of Exorcist, said, in Hollywood, luck and skill have nothing to do with it. It's all ambition. Which is funny because you were talking about, anyways, it's funny how they break down. And it's like the anger question used to be, can anger be a productive emotion? And people would go, yes or no. And then my wife's dad, who's a social worker, said, no, change it to anger can be a productive emotion when, because then it's more involving. They have to come up with something. It's not just a yes or a no.
Right, right.
Then I asked this guy, can anger be a productive? No. Then I said, anger can be a productive emotion when, and he goes, it can't be a productive emotion. He literally flipped back to the original question
Right, right.
without him knowing it. He didn't know my original question had changed over the years. So here's one
Well,
for you.
that's interesting though that someone thinks that anger can never be productive.
Well, it's like actually George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic, said all emotions can be productive and not productive.
Yeah,
So we know that, but the person definitely had some sort of issue, and he didn't want to tap into. Maybe he had an anger issue, you know.
right. And it's
So
never right. It's always bit him in the ass whenever he got angry. So yeah,
right, right. So he didn't want to. But this one, I'm really curious. T.S. Eliot said that poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
man, what language is my inner dialogue in? Um, what language? I'm trying to parse the question to figure out what you mean by what language. I think my inner dialogue I think it's different. My inner dialogue, I don't think is necessarily the I think if I can compartmentalize my inner dialogue, then I can do my cartoons because I have to be in a certain um, whimsical type of mindset. And if I am going through something difficult, I kind of have to. There have been a few times where I can't shut things out. It's just like this is stressing me out, and I have been able to kind of like if I can't get it out of my head, I have to make a joke about it. I have to kind of go through this loss or whatever it is and try to make it funny. But for a lot of, and I think I've done that as I've gotten older. I used to fight that all the time. Like if I was going through and I was sad about something or I was angry or whatever, I couldn't get in the zone to make something funny. But now I think I kind of, I'll just say, okay, I got to use this because I always thought for the songwriter, angst is good. For the
Yeah.
poet, angst is good. But for the single panel cartoonist, it's not good. Like you, not
and,
helpful, you know?
and you finally had the epiphany, dude. I can tap into that shit too. You,
Right,
you
right.
brought up, you know what I was fishing for almost was what language is your inner dialogue in? And I thought you would say the cartoon bubble, you know.
Uh,
but
all right,
but
can we edit this and then I can go back and say that?
no, no, it's
We're
that
just for usually cartoonists will say word balloon.
a word
That's
balloon.
kind of cartoon bubble is used, but if you talk to a cartoonist, it's almost always word balloon.
Oh, I'm glad. I want to learn new terms, believe me. But it's funny because I love this answer. Experimental filmmaker in New York. What language is your inner dialogue in? She goes, I wish I knew. Because people
Oh,
say they'll say TV commercials or my mother's voice or whatever,
oh yeah.
you know.
Boy, I got to give simpler answers.
No, you don't have to do anything, but what you're doing is good. But you brought up a word that I'm really curious. You brought up whimsy. What's another word, or how do you describe what whimsy means? I love that word, but I'd love to hear you suss it out a little because it seems as though you're exploring that a lot. Whimsy is something you explore, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's I guess the way that I'd define it in this scenario or situation with myself is just trying to take something that we or a lot of us experience can relate to and just making it humorous, making
Yeah.
something that can be a negative and trying to turn it into a funny situation.
Yeah. That's that whole thing of Moshe Feldenkrais, turn your weakness into your strength. This is McLuhan's main thing. How do you turn a breakdown into a breakthrough? How do you turn a
Mhm.
rejection into a redirection?
It is tough. Like if something goes, wrong, like during a day, it is hard to kind of put it anywhere positive in your brain. It's can ruin your day easily. So I don't know. I don't have a solution to that.
Well, whimsy is interesting because it reminds me of Lewis Carroll. He said, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you have you believed in any impossible things lately?
Believe in impossible things. I don't think I believe in impossible things, unfortunately, but um, I do like to spend a lot of time thinking about impossible things.
Yeah. Sun Ra said, the impossible attracts me because everything possible has been done and the world didn't change.
Well, I'm taking impossible to be so literal.
There you go.
If it's impossible, then how can you even argue?
Yep. There you go. Now, two of my film heroes have said these statements: ignore yourself, and there is no self expression. Cecil Taylor, great jazz pianist, says, I'm just a vehicle, and this just comes through me. I know it's both, and it depends.
Mhm.
It's a stupid question, basically, but is art making, cartooning, more self expression or more you're a vehicle for whatever culture or technology is dominant?
Well, if someone's a vehicle, I think because I've had cartoonists and I felt this way sometimes, and I've had them say to me that when they're writing or drawing, sometimes it feels like it's coming from somewhere else. It's like I felt like I was given this. It wasn't like I had to think about it. It was just kind of flowing there. But I don't necessarily see the difference between those two things.
Well,
Where vehicle, Well, you're running your vehicle. Like
Yeah.
you're the driver of that vehicle. So if you're a vehicle, you're also the one um, at the steering wheel. So
No,
are you saying that you're putting yourself into it, or you're not putting like you're
well,
putting your personality into it?
it's sort of like what I'm fishing for is what I got from
You're fishing for. So
yeah.
now you're fishing for certain answers. Okay.
Oh, I'm always fishing for I'll admit it throughout, but it doesn't mean I like when I don't get that answer I'm fishing for or not. I just, I have my own
Oh, good,
there's
because that's
there's
what you.
right, there's a couple things going on here. One is Ginger Baker, the drummer for Cream. They said, "Where'd you get your drum sound?" He says, "I was in London when they were bombing us. So the bombs went off like this. Boom, 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 boom." So that's where he got his drum sound. So
Wow.
and then James Brown's drummer, same thing. He lived in Ohio next to a train track and the factory. So the factory sound would be pss, pss, and then the train would be pss, pss. So he invented funk drumming from what he was submerged in. But then the guy from Negative Land told me the best. He said Missy Elliott learned how to sing from car alarms.
Uh,
So I mean, these are all cute examples. I
right.
mean, we're all affected by our it's like Taking the A Train by Duke Ellington. He was next to a train track and he wrote the song. So I mean, it's affected. The hidden question really is
Oh, there's can I throw in? Because
sure,
the Bee Gees with Jive Talking? You know
yeah,
that song?
yeah,
It starts out and they were going over a bridge and all the dividers, and that was how they got the intro to
yeah.
that song. But not
That's super. That's like Captain Beefheart got a song from the windshield wiper sound.
oh,
You know, yeah. So, but this is like the hidden question, really, Mark, is can art making be egoless? Can cartooning be
oh,
egoless?
um, I guess I don't think completely.
Yeah,
I think there are certain ranges where some people it's all about ego, and some people try to be, this is the art. I'm not, it's a separation, but I think there's always a little of somebody in what they make.
yeah. Now I asked for 90 minutes and we got like 3 minutes left. Can you go a little over?
Sure.
Oh, cool.
I
Okay,
just
so
this is caffeine here, so I think I'll be okay.
cool. How do you find peace of mind?
I don't.
Can,
You?
can you? Yeah, I do. I do. But it's funny how people um answer that question. There's all
I think it's small doses, sometimes listening
yeah,
to music, but I think there's so much angst or so much going on that just to peace of mind, just that sounds like a goal. I mean,
yeah,
actually achieving it
yeah,
sounds it sounds out of reach, but maybe it's not.
yeah. But it's interesting. It's again the words. How do you find peace of mind? Or does peace of mind just come to someone? If I'm at the beach and the sun's setting and I'm with my friends, it might be peace of mind.
Right.
And then how often do you see God? Can you forget to die?
um I love that idea. I mean, I love that sounds like a great book or something, but a graphic novel, The Guy Who Forgot to Die. I would say no. I would say you can't. It's out of your
Yeah.
hand.
If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
You're going to be a cartoonist.
That is good. If a publisher was to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
Oh, wow. Um, uh, the confused cartoonist.
They that's good. They want to scent the glue in the binding. What smell?
Oh, they're gonna scent the
Oh,
binding?
yeah,
Do
when
they
you open up the book, you'll get a whiff of some smell. What smell would it be?
do they do that in real life?
You wanna know where I got this question?
Yeah.
When Madonna put out her book, she scented the glue with patchouli.
Oh,
So you should hear the answers I get. So I just applied it. What smell would your book be, you know?
Girl Scout cookie, Thin Mints.
Oh my god, that is a great answer. Girl Scout. Yeah, George Clinton said, fried chicken.
Oh, that'd be a tough book to put down.
They wanna have a color other than black ink on some of the pages. What color?
Purple, 'cause my mother's favorite, so
Oh, that's good. If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed, and what would it be made of?
It would be made of moon rock, and it would be on the moon. How's that?
Oh, nice. These are 5 Alan Watts questions, really quick off the top of your head, just in a few words. You're limited to, like, 2 to 4 words. Who started it all?
Wasn't Billy Joel. He didn't start the fire. We know that.
Are we going to make it?
Um, I don't know anymore.
Where do we put it?
Somewhere safe.
Who's cleaning it up?
Not me.
Is it serious?
Half the time.
Very good. Okay, back to the normal questions. Which way should toilet paper come off the roll? Over
Oh,
or up?
over.
Why?
Over. It's easier to grab.
That's great. Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Something good I never had and never want. Pilot's license. How about that?
That's good. You mean to drive an airplane to drive an
Yeah, I
airplane?
think that would be great to have, but I don't want that responsibility.
Right. I never had it, never wanted. That's good. If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
Um, say fuck you. Already I'm already up to what do you need from me? I'm already up to
That is good. First you say "fuck you," and then you go, "Hey, what do you need from me?" I like this one person said, "I wouldn't be in a situation like that."
I refuse your scenario.
Yeah. Um, Thornton Wilder said, "Art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same
Ah,
time." Mark, you've laid your cards on the table for 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you hadn't already answered this. What's it really all about for you?
um, getting by in a most fun way possible.
Oh, that is a great attitude. What's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
Oh, that inspires me. Okay. Probably inclusiveness. That's
Yeah,
the positive thing. I mean, it's not that way everywhere, but the change from when I was growing up is phenomenal.
yeah. It's really been fun, Mark. I appreciate it. Last question is what gives you the most optimism?
Um, what gives me the most optimism, I guess, is meeting nice people like yourself, just people who have the right kind of mindset, the right positivity, the right they like the right people, they hate the right people. Um, just I guess that because there's so much there's so many if you let yourself go down Twitter or things like that, you see all these bad things that are happening. So the way to counteract that is look for the what was it? What was that Mr. Rogers said? Look at the helpers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good because sort of went full circle. The first question I asked is, what's the best thing for a human being? And I got that from a woman who studied with Wilhelm Reich, who said other people. And the last question I got is one of the last questions they asked Groucho Marx: what gives you the most optimism? Or what gives you the most optimism? And he said other people. Now that's funny because Groucho spent his life cutting down other people, but he needed them, you know.
Right. Well, that was his act. So you interviewed Groucho Marx?
No, I heard that at one of his last appearances, he was asked, what gives you the most optimism? So then I snagged that question to close my interview with, because I thought that was, but I would say let's add a bonus, because it's they asked McLuhan, are you an optimist or a pessimist? And he goes, I'm an apocalypse. We're fucked. Meaning, he didn't really say we're fucked, but he said an apocalypse, if you study the etymology of the word apocalypse, it means to reveal. So he was just like trying to be Toto, like an atomic dog in the Wizard of Oz, and just pull the curtain back and like say, here, you decide, you know. So I'm just curious, because you seem to be a positive guy from this 90 minutes we spent together, but you said, well, no, I'm not necessarily an optimist, but it seems as though you know how to navigate your pessimism and your not optimism, you know.
Yeah, I think it changes. I don't feel like I've never decided that I was either of those. I feel like there's realism, there's optimist pessimism, then there's realism, and I
Yeah.
kind of feel like day to day I can go to bed and feel like the biggest pessimist. And then the middle of the day I feel like an optimist. So I don't feel like I kind of fit either of those. It's just like what time you ask me.
It's good, because that's called comprehensive awareness. That's like, if you study patterns, you get the big picture. But I left this question out, so I got to add it. Is perception reality?
Is perception reality? I guess for it has to be, yeah.
Yeah.
Right? What's let me ask you that. Because of what so are you at wow, I can if I really analyze that, I could come up with all different kinds of
It's a deep question in a lot
yeah.
of ways, but it's, I mean, the answers I get are totally varied, but my favorite is Coleman Miller, who wrote, he actually made a film that's a fake experimental film. It's like a cross between Ernie Kovacs and Tex Avery. I'll send you the link. It's called Uso Justo. It's hilarious. It's sort of like What's Up, Tiger Lily? And I says, is perception reality? He says, that's all you got. Which is amazing, because isn't perception. Rob, you want to jump in here? Because here's a young person who knows a lot.
Uh-oh.
Rob,
I had to switch off, so I missed that question.
Is perception reality, Rob?
No.
No, I'm going to agree with Rob because I can look at someone in their perception. I go, your perception is way off.
Yeah.
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 But what we perceive is the reality for us. So that's how usually people say it's a reality. So we're trying to, it's not.
That's like subjectivity and objectivity.
Yeah.
Right. Does reality have to be real, or does it have to be what someone thinks is real?
There's truth, and there's capital T truth.
Yeah, there's small T truth and capital T, and it's like Andy Warhol is don't it's not who you are, it's who you think you are. So that's back to that ambition thing. If
I would
Rob,
agree with that.
Yeah, if Rob thinks he's the greatest podcaster on earth and he has more viewers than Joe Rogan, yeah.
Yeah. But if I
Right.
think I'm the greatest of all time and I got 4 people watching me, well, that might not be based in reality. I actually wanted to come on though, because I don't know if you guys can see the comments, but we've had a few comments.
I
was
know.
wondering if you wanted me to read
I
them.
did not see them. No.
Yeah. No, they're amazing. Yeah, we never do the comments thing, but it was sort of fun. Mark has a fan club who tuned in.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Thank you. Hey, thanks for. I posted on my social media, but I'm not as stupid as I'm about to explain myself for being stupid. But I just said, okay, 3 hour difference, and I put the 3 hours the wrong way, and I had it posted on all, so people tuned in, at noon at 12:30, and then I was like, oh, so I had
but it wasn't the other way wrong. That was
I had to.
But Rob, that's funny. You're on a station called I'm Probably Wrong About Everything.
And you were wrong about the time.
I can relate to that. Yeah.
You might have thought it's part of the.
Is he able? Are people able to see the comments after it's posted on YouTube?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He thinks
it's different though. The way the comments show up, it's not in the comments section. It's like on the side, I think.
And you have to pull it up somehow.
Yeah. But I was thinking we could pull up some ones just for an example. Kim said, "I love Mark's mad respect for his daughter."
Oh, just run through them, because then we know they're all up there.
Right.
Amoeba Stampede. Maybe
No,
John
maybe. Amoeba Stampede.
There you go. That's Finneganese right there.
Yeah.
Maybe John Waters acknowledges that the witch is more entitled to the shoes than Dorothy is.
That was good.
Well, she's got a point.
Today's cartoon, when Maddie returned from the vet. Pirate Bob 1, some deep questions here. Pirate Bob 1 again. I just had a phrase pop into my head about this interview. This is like a course in the philosophy of humor. And Amoeba Stampede again. Great questions, great answers, great discussion. Thanks, gentlemen.
Super cool.
These were some intense. These were great questions. I mean, I like questions like this that can kind of be answered broadly about ideas, not necessarily about specific events or things, but really broad and philosophical.
But it was good because we got into both ends of the spectrum, and it's like just a curious thing, because Flash just gave me a list of like 25 people that are amazing. I'm going through interviewing them now, and it's what's behind the creative process more. I mean, we can actually consume your cartoons, and I love your website because your bio is not traditional. It's a little more playful. I love everybody. Yeah, it's really cool. And it says first concert, first car I bought. What's the first car you had?
Chrysler Cordoba.
Yeah.
Corinthian leather. Do you remember Ricardo Montalban?
Oh yeah.
Rob wouldn't know, but you might.
Isn't that like I Love Lucy or something like that?
No, you're thinking of Ricardo. This was the again, I'm going to use references that you probably don't know. The Fantasy Island guy.
Oh, I've heard of Fantasy Island.
Yeah.
Never have
he
I
can
ever
look it up. The beauty is he can look it up and find
But
it.
Fantasy Island came back, right?
Yeah.
They rebooted it, like they were booting everything. And my mom's like, Fantasy Island. I'm like, what is that? Like a love show? And she tried to explain it to me. She's like, no, it's a TV show. And like the way she was explaining it was the premise of Survivor. I was like, you mean like Survivor? She's like, no, it was a TV show, not reality.
Island. There are these people that take a plane and they go to the island and they have a fantasy that they signed up for and paid for. So they want to live out their fantasy on the island. But what they get is even more
shocking. breaking up.
It will come back.
There it
Yeah,
is.
we missed the last couple lines, Mark. Repeat them.
I don't think they wanted to talk about Fantasy Island.
I know the gerbil just got so tired. Go ahead, Rob.
I was going to say, Mark, I mean, one thing I kind of want to thank you for is you were involved in Cow and Chicken.
No, that's Bill Burnett.
Oh, okay. But your cartoon, what?
I
does-
have nothing to do with Cow and Chicken, but I'll take whatever.
Okay. Really, what I was going to say though is that why I think cartoonists are so amazing is that they have refused to let their inner child die.
Yes,
and that power is something that I think we could all utilize today. Like, how can we better utilize our own inner child? Because people who say things like I can't stand children, I'm like, whoa, that's a shocking statement, because it's not like your child has ever died. It's still within you. So what advice do you have for us to get back to our inner child, our inner creative genie?
Maybe Nerf guns.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I have it. My daughters too, and man, not that it's about my rejuvenation and faith in society or anything, but I'm getting back in touch with my inner kid. And I'm so thankful for it.
Yeah, if you spend time with a young kid and you start playing whatever games, the fun just comes back sometimes. So when people say they don't like kids, I don't like. I think sometimes there are certain kids that aren't likable. I mean, that's true enough. I mean, it's easy to like your own kid and hate everyone else's kid, but there's just the innocent, the pure fun that kids have. Like, it's hard to have that as an adult.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like a Nerf gun war, that can bring it back, as much as anything, I guess.
That's what they have to fight.
Nerf gun wars.
This potential new war should be fought with Nerf guns.
Yes.
Get it. Crop dust the whole area with THC and airdrop some Nerf guns. Give Putin one too.
Just
free pizza for everybody. So you just have a big pizza party.
Sign me up. Yeah.
Everyone gets a trophy. Yeah.
Everybody gets it. Yeah. Participation medal. Thanks for coming to Crimea or whatever. Yeah. Hey, Mark, thank you so much. I just wanted to read those comments. And
thanks, Rob, and thanks, Mark.
Well, thank you.
Really fun.
Yeah, this was like no other interview I've ever done. So thank you so much. That was fun.
Super cool. We'll keep going forever and ever.
That's the one joke though I'll say is that my buddies they'll listen and they're like, I love how Jerry's like, okay, just first question off the bat, what is the best way for human beings to consume information? Like, whoa, that's not a hey, how are you?
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks again, guys.
Right in.
Thanks. Bye.